Hello, I'm 𝗏𝗂𝗍𝗈, founder of Starlit Contracts, where we help you to negotiate and use contracts with confidence. This video is part of our Build the Foundation in Contracts program, and our topic is confidential information. To summarize, confidential information tends to be information that is sensitive to one or both parties to a deal. So whilst they might want to exchange that information between them so that they can do something together, they wouldn't want it to be shared with other parties, potentially parties who are unconnected with the deal and who might use that information to the disadvantage to one of the parties. How do you manage confidential information in practice? Well, that depends on the point that you've reached in your contract journey. Because if you're just in discussion with another party to try and evaluate, do you want to enter into a formal deal or not? But this discussion still requires you to share potentially sensitive information with the other party, then you could enter into a non-disclosure agreement, sometimes just called an NDA or a confidentiality agreement. In that case, the other party is permitted to use your information, your confidential information, but only for the purpose that you allow in that non-disclosure agreement. If, on the other hand, you're ready to enter into a contract with the other party, perhaps for the supply of goods or services or for some other reason, then it's typical to have a boilerplate confidentiality clause in the contract. Is this something that you should care about? Well, it's typical to see a confidentiality clause included in template contracts, but it becomes even more important when you know that you're going to be sharing sensitive information with the other party that you don't want them to be sharing further. Let's look at a practical example together now. Finance Solutions Supplier Limited is bidding for a contract with Private Company Limited. Supplier proposes a highly innovative financing solution that significantly improves the customer's cash flow. What can go right for the supplier in this situation? Well, let's say the supplier knows very well that the solution they're offering is highly innovative and it provides them with a competitive advantage over the other bidders for that deal. In that situation, the supplier might say to the customer, look, we really want to make you an offer. We think we've got something that's going to be very, very interesting for you. But first, we should enter into a non-disclosure agreement to make sure that you can use our offer to be evaluated and decide if you want to award a contract to us, but you can't share it with any other party. What could go wrong for the supplier who came up with the innovative solution? Well, if they provide their bid to the customer without having a non-disclosure agreement in place, then that creates an elevated risk that the customer would be able to share that solution with other bidders. This would dilute the competitive advantage of the supplier who came up with the innovative solution in the first case. Let's look at a sample clause and some key considerations together now. And firstly to the clause. Confidential information is information that a party shares with the other party in any form, including email. It includes, and then you describe the confidential information that you plan to share. When you're filling in the details between those square brackets in the clause to identify what information should be treated as confidential information, you've got two main options. The first option is to incorporate a catch-all statement, which essentially means that all information that one party discloses to the other party should be treated as confidential information. On the other hand, you can be much more precise if you know that there's a specific bit of content that you're going to disclose to the other party that you want them to treat in confidence. So it might be a business plan, or it might be a specific idea for a business that you've come up with, in which case you can very precisely identify what that information is to ensure that it's treated in confidence. So our clause continues, confidential information does not include information that is or becomes available to the general public, is known to a party before receipt from the other party, and a party receives from another party who does not break an obligation of confidentiality to the sharing party to the receiving party's knowledge. It is typical to see A, B, and C in a contract as exceptions to when the obligation of confidentiality would apply. In other words, if you provide what you consider to be confidential information to me, but then A, B, or C applies, then I would be able to use that confidential information in the way that I deem appropriate. And the clause continues, a party may share confidential information of the other party with a government or judicial authority if it is required to do so, but will promptly inform the disclosing party. This part of the clause reflects a certain reality, because if an official authority makes a request that I share certain information with them, then I'm probably not going to be able to withhold that information. I'm under an obligation to disclose it to them. Now, that information could potentially include information that you deem to be confidential. So, whilst I have to disclose it to the authority, I can at least inform you of that request from the authority and the requirement for me to disclose it, so that you have the opportunity to at least try and intervene or take any such other act that you deem appropriate. I hope you found that video helpful, and if so, you can access the entire Build the Foundation in Contracts program on our website starlitcontracts.com. Remember to comment below if there's content that you would like to see in an upcoming video. See you next time.